Alright everybody, I'm going to do a little setup before this shop time video. I wanted to kind of let you know or describe to you some of the things that you're going to be seeing in the next video here. One of the things that we use on our pieces of equipment is called an electrical motor. All electrical motors are electrical. So what it is it allows you to run a dual voltage if you want to. If your plant is set up for 240 volts, then you can run this particular motor at 240 volts. If it's designed for 480, you can run it 480. Just remember, the higher the voltage, the lower the current draw. So if you have a motor that is set up for 480 volts, it's going to draw less current than a motor that runs 240 volts. Okay, and that's always an advantage, because the higher the voltage, the lower the current, the more stuff you can run off of that voltage. So if you're restricted to 240 volts, then you're not going to be able to run as much equipment off of it. I guess it's a little less dangerous, but not much. 240 volts will knock you back just as quick as 480 volts. I know. Alright, so let's get into the video. I'll show y'all some of the motors and some of the equipment that we work on inside a cotton gin, okay? You notice the very first thing I do is I turn the disconnect off. That way nobody can come in there and turn it on while I've got wires exposed and I'm unwiring stuff. See, it's on there, it's off there. And I put a lock on it so nobody can come turn on any of this equipment. I even go inside the cabinet here and I turn the breakers off. See these three breakers? Those go to the three motors that I'm unwiring. And I go ahead and cut all these breakers off too, even though they don't go to those particular motors. I just want to make sure that when I do get ready to go to them, that the power's cut off on those as well. And that's the main disconnect. I don't pull the fuses out. I just make sure everything's disconnected. Now here's the motors that I was talking about. You have three of them on this particular machine. They're designed to run either, like I said, either low voltage, which on this one is 230, 240 volts. The high voltage is 480. Now all the wires are marked. You can see all the marking indicators on the wiring itself. Now the important thing is the wiring that is coming from the machine. See, it says T1. The wiring from the machine to the motors is actually not that important. It's the wiring inside the motor. There's 9 leads inside that motor, and which ones you tie together and which ones you actually tie to that power cord right there. Let me see if I can get you. See, that's T2. Those are the ones that you have to pay attention to a good little bit. You actually have to see, they're just wire nutted inside that motor junction box there. You got wires coming in from the machine to that motor, and they're tied together in that junction box with those wire nuts. Now, like I said, initially the important thing what you have to do is to also, you need to make sure you got this ground hooked up, because all current goes straight to ground. Okay, if there's a short somewhere, you want it to ground out on the machine and go to ground. If you don't have that ground wire hooked up and you go in there and you start messing with stuff, guess what? You become the ground. So that's where it's going. So I try to make sure these exposed wires will be wire nutted, so even if something happens and power does come on, see, those are the secondary. That's what we call secondary windings. Secondary wiring. But if somebody does turn the power on, at least they got wire nuts on them that won't brush up against anybody. Now here's the schematic, for what you want to wire something up for, what you want to wire up this motor for. The things you have to keep in mind is, like I said, all the wires that are labeled inside that motor, it tells you right there which wires to tie up for low voltage and which wires you tie up for high voltage. And it's really elementary. It's nothing really extremely complicated. You just got to know what voltage that you're using, whether it be low voltage or high voltage, 480 or 240. And you got to, make sure everything's tied up. See, those are the wires that you tie together. And it's really not that complicated of stuff. Now, the tag on the motor will tell you exactly, you know, what the RPMs are, what the horsepower is, what the two voltages are. FLA stands for full load amps. You can see that the 240 pulls 3.8 amps and the 480 pulls, well, about half of that, 1.9. So that's why 480 volts or 460 in this particular case, but that's why the higher the voltage, the lower the current is one of the reasons that it's so popular in a lot of big plants. Is because you can run more equipment with a higher voltage because it pulls less current. But it tells you everything but the frame, and most of them will tell you the frame as well. If you look right here, let's go over here to this motor. That motor is called a C-face frame. It's a C-face, which means it connects directly up to whatever it is those bolts are. This is the head that actually, that motor connects a belt to that head. And that's what I'm trying to get off right there. Y'all see my mask around my neck? And anybody walks up to me real quick like I gotta put my mask on. I think the governor's done made it to where now everybody's gotta wear a mask if you're out in public. So somebody walks up and they're within 6 foot of me, I gotta put my mask on so I don't catch the Black Death. Black Death, hey, speaking of the Black Death, you know where it originally came from, where some of the earliest cases were? China in the east. That hose was hard to get off. It was actually even used in battle. The Black Death was. There was a group called the Tartars who were assaulting a city in Crimea. It was a Christian-held city, and they had it under siege. Well, they had a bunch of people that died of plague, you know, and the plague still lived in the dead tissue. So what they do is they put them on catapults, and they'd sling those dead bodies over the walls into the city. It just scared people to death whenever those dead bodies come flying over the walls. Oh, and it worked. The Christians left the city. What was the name of the city? Kasa, I think it was, or Kaskar. Look out now. Oh, what was the name of that? Kaffa, I think that's the reason. But it worked. The panicked people inside Kaffa abandoned the city and fled on rat-infested ships back to Europe. The Tartars, I think, were Russians. I think that's where they were from. But that had to be a heck of a sight. Sitting there, been holding out. Here they come. All right, see y'all next time.